You ever get that feeling you've been judged before you even open your mouth? Yeah, it happens all the time. Our physical appearance, it creates this instant first impression. And in the professional world, that one single look can unconsciously shape everything from our salaries to our entire careers. So let's deconstruct this. We're going to see just how deep these biases really run and how they quietly pull the strings in our professional lives. Just picture it for a second. You walk into that room, you shake their hand. When do you think the real decision gets made? Is it after your first killer answer? Maybe 5 minutes in? How much time do you actually have to prove yourself? Well, the answer is kind of startling. According to one study, nearly half, 46%, of recruiters have already made up their mind about a candidate before a single word is even spoken. I mean, think about that. Your fate could be sealed in just a few seconds, based on literally nothing more than how you look. And look, this goes way beyond a simple misunderstanding. It's a fundamental bias we all carry. So let's break down how one single glance can instantly turn into a label that is just so hard to shake. This cartoon just nails it, doesn't it? The caption says, "Prejudices can be enormously misleading." You see this tiny bird interviewing a massive elephant, and you immediately get how absurd it is. But honestly, our own snap judgments can be just as ridiculous. And just to be crystal clear, we're not talking about a simple social misstep here. This is a legally recognized form of discrimination. Any harmful decision, like, say, refusing to hire someone because of their physical traits, has very real and often illegal consequences. So what do people think has the biggest impact when it comes to hiring? Well, an internal survey revealed some really eye-opening stuff. A massive 74% of people pointed to clothing, tattoos, and piercings. And right behind that, 58% said body size. It just goes to show how deeply we believe these external things can completely overshadow someone's actual skills. So why? Why does this keep happening? It's not because we're all just bad people. It's because our brains are literally hardwired to take shortcuts. Let's dig into how these mental shortcuts or stereotypes actually work. You see, at their core, stereotypes are just the brain's way of trying to simplify an incredibly complex world. We create these little categories to process information faster. It's a totally natural process, but it becomes incredibly dangerous the moment we use a broad, lazy generalization to judge a unique, individual person. Let's look at a really specific and, frankly, deeply damaging example of this. The kind of bias that revolves around a person's weight and body size. The stereotypes tied to being overweight are, well, they're brutal, and they are completely unfounded. People are often seen as lazy or clumsy, unintelligent, maybe lacking self-control, labels that have absolutely zero connection to their actual skills or their character. And this image captures that silent burden just perfectly. The candidate's shirt is this defiant pushback against all those unspoken judgments he knows he's facing. It's just a really powerful picture of that fight to be seen for who you are, not what some stereotype claims you are. Now, it's not just about body size, of course. These snap judgments are also triggered by our personal style. Everything from the clothes we wear to our tattoos and piercings. Can you imagine a recruiter basically saying, "Okay, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see that. Now convince me." I mean, this is the reality for so many people with a non-traditional style. They're facing this immediate hurdle, forced to overcome a negative bias before the interview even really gets going. And don't think this is some fringe opinion. A staggering 82% of people believe that when you have two candidates who are equally qualified, it's their look and their clothing that becomes the ultimate tiebreaker. Just let that sink in for a second and what it means for the idea of a true meritocracy. All right, next up, let's tackle a really complex one, the bias around beauty. You might just assume that being physically attractive is always a plus, right? Well, the reality is a lot more complicated. It can be a surprising double-edged sword. So on one hand, you have the halo effect, this idea where we just assume beautiful people are also more competent and smart. But on the other hand, especially for women in roles with a lot of responsibility, that same attractiveness can lead to a penalty, where they get dismissed as being superficial or less serious. And this bias, it has a very real, tangible financial impact. Studies show a beauty premium can boost salaries by a lot. Meanwhile, there's an ugliness penalty that can actively lower a person's earnings over their entire career for reasons that have nothing to do with their actual performance.
So these aren't just random thoughts floating around in our heads, right? These mental shortcuts translate directly into real-world harm, both for individuals and for the companies that they work for. This brings us to this powerful psychological trap called the Pygmalion effect. It's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. If a manager's first impression of an employee is positive, they'll invest more in them, they'll encourage them, and guess what? That employee thrives. But if the impression is negative, they'll invest less, offer less support, and that leads to poorer performance, which, ironically, proves the manager's initial bias was right all along. And on the flip side of that coin, you've got something called the stereotype threat. This is that intense pressure an individual feels not to confirm a negative stereotype about their group. That fear alone can cause so much anxiety that they actually underperform, creating this vicious cycle that was fueled entirely by that initial bias. Okay, so we've looked at the problem, the psychology behind it, and the real-world damage it does. But the good news is, we are not slaves to these biases. Let's talk about solutions, about the actual steps we can all take to forge a better way forward. For anyone in a leadership position, the path forward really boils down to 3 key things. First, you've got to be honest and acknowledge your own biases. Second, you have to consciously shift your evaluations to focus only on objective skills and facts. And third, you have to actively build a culture where bias remarks are just not okay. And hey, this isn't just for managers. We can all start doing this stuff today. Be mindful of the words you use. Just stop making generalizations about entire groups of people. And when you have that snap judgment about someone, just pause and ask yourself, wait, is this really true? And most importantly, engage with people respectfully. So, let's end with a question for you. This isn't about trying to become a perfect person overnight. It's about taking one small, conscious step. So, what's one snap judgment you've made, one first impression, that you can decide to challenge, starting today?